Hey, Trailblazers. In this episode, we're going to share with you how to make a boring story and offer unique and exciting and so you can stand out in a saturated market with Sean Stewart. So stick around.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest.
Welcome, Sean. We're excited to have you with us today. Why don't you give a little context to the audience, let them know what you're about, and then we're going to dive in because I think this is a super important topic because people always feel like their industry is crowded and finding unique ways to stand out is so important. So welcome, excited to have you, and let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Grateful to be here. I have been coaching entrepreneurs for 15 years, and I've been helping them leverage speaking and stages as a primary marketing strategy. And my background is actually that of a spoken word poet and rapper. And so for many years, I was pursuing my creative goals and trying to make it in music. I'm from Los Angeles. I played shows, all around from, LA to New York and many albums and things like that. And when I started my coaching business, I put all that music stuff aside. I got trained by Tony Robbins, and I was all about wearing the buttoned up suit and trying to play the part of the business guy. And at a certain point, it felt like a heaviness that there was something more that I needed to bring out. And that was because I thought that the artist in me wasn't going to be acceptable. And so I got him out of the closet. I made a decision to share that part of me in my business. And I launched my Rock Your Gift brand in 2017 with the focus on integrating that gift and that art into the business. And a lot of people said, oh, business is all about the customer. You don't want to do that. That's all about you. And I decided that I needed to do it because it was something that was deeper than sort of a logical choice. It was something that was calling me. And once I did that, my business not only exploded, but I was also pioneering something that a lot of people said that I was giving them permission to bring their gifts and talents into their business so they can stand out. So I'm really grateful I made that choice. And that's why I'm here today.
That's awesome. So how do we do this? Because it feels like you turn around, at least online today, and you run into another coach who teaches this thing, right? I mean, there really isn't any blue oceans in general, right? So how do you create a blue ocean and actually find that unique spin and that unique angle?
So I think there's two different ways to look at this. Well, there's kind of the typical idea of a unique mechanism that marketers understand. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And that's one way to kind of create that impression that you've got a different and unique offer or message in the marketplace. But what I did was really look at, okay, what do I love? What is the thing that lights me up? What's my genius zone? For me, it has always been in the realm of communication. I'm a freestyle rapper. I always get into these zones where I would just rap for hours and hours. It was like time stood still. And it was like I was just in that flow state. And I started to look at how could I bring that energy into my business? And it was just this decision to take that risk that led me to realize that when I started showing up as that true, authentic version of me, like it had to do with how I communicated, but it also had to do with even how I dressed, my branding. Like once I said, okay, I'm the artist, I'm not the buttoned up business guy, I was actually able to attract people who saw me for who I really am. And so when I get up on stage and I share a rap or I share a story, it's like the people that are truly resonating with my core self, like who I really am, those are the people that are really feeling alive and turned on and transformed by the work. And those are the people that become my clients. So this first way and kind of direction of how do you stand out has to do with asking the question of what is it that I love? What is it that makes me unique? What is it the thing that I do, the time stands still, my genius zone? And how could I possibly bring that into my business? And what I do with my clients and the people that I work with in my events is I have them move through a process of articulating that genius zone in a sentence. We can talk about that framework in a little bit, but just wanted to kind of give you the background on that piece.
Well, I'm curious. So you're saying start with something you're passionate about, something that time stands still with. So if what have you seen that be for the clients? Because people might be like, well, I might have something like that, but like, what are some examples?
Yeah, it's very easy for people to be a little bit like, huh? I don't understand, or go through all kinds of different like levels of trying to figure out what we're talking about here because this is something that people don't talk about. And that's why I love having this be the topic of what I'm here to share because the whole message behind my brand for myself and my clients is innovating, is talking about things that aren't typical, is kind of breaking open the common ways of thinking about things. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is something that already exists in the marketplace. So as an example, Donald Miller has a big brand, story brand. He's got books and so forth. Well, he's combining brand and storytelling. It's like this integration apart. Jay Shetty, who has a background as a monk, he brings that mindfulness into his coaching and his transformational work. Like you can see it all over the place where people are taking something that is this unique background and they're not just putting it on the side and saying, oh, that's a side thing. They're actually integrating it into the business. And even Marcus Lemota's in the show The Profit, whenever he connects with business owners, he's always looking at what's the story? What's the unique thing, right? What is it that you've gone through in your life? How do we bring that into the brand story so that, we have something that differentiates? So that's really what we're talking about. When it comes to my clients, it's all over the map. I have a client who is a corporate coach, but she loves downhill skiing. So in my particular case, it's like art, right? It's like rapping, it's performing. That's kind of what I look at as the X factor. But it doesn't have to be art. It can be whatever it is that you love. It could be being with your children. It could be like cooking, right? And so the first thing is asking ourselves, okay, what's that thing that I do that I love? It's kind of a unique, quirky thing. And how can we integrate it into the business and not just do it in a linear way? Like, for instance, if I was to say, oh, I love rapping, so I guess I could take my clients out and we could all do some rapping, right? Like, it's very like on the nose. Another person who loves singing is like, what am I supposed to do? I'm a business coach. Am I supposed to make my clients sing? I'm like, well, no, it's the energy behind that X factor, right? So for me, I like to integrate it into all kinds of things because I want my clients to feel the energy behind my purpose, my mission, and my calling. And so that is what we're talking about. To me, what lights you up, what I'm calling art, what we're calling your X factor, what we're calling your genius zone, that is the thing that we're born to do. It's like your calling, your purpose. And so we're talking about integrating kind of your core self into your business because one of the philosophies I stand for is the idea that your business isn't just a means to make money and to get clients. It's actually a vehicle for doing the work you're really here to do in the world. I don't know if I share this with you guys, but my dad's an Academy nominated screenwriter. I grew up in Hollywood. My dad wrote a movie called Officer and a Gentleman, Blue Lagoon, Boy in the Plastic Bubble. He introduced John Travolta to the world. And so like I have had a background of great art in my life, timeless art. My dad, if you've ever watched Officer and a Gentleman, it's a movie that you could watch 100 years from now and it'll still be a classic film. You'll still be like engaged by it, right? And so I really believe that my purpose is to help bring people's idea about business into a new realm where they can see their business as not just a means to an end, but actually a vehicle for their purpose. And so that's really what we're talking about. And of course, it does help you stand out, but there's more of a transformational element behind this.
So one thing that came to mind for me when you said that is actually Molly Mahoney. We recently connect with her and she's awesome. And she was literally singing. She comes from Broadway. That was her background in musical theater. And she sang on stage when we were talking with her and she's awesome. And, her business coaching isn't about singing or anything like that, but it's her flavor of herself. It's the who she shows up as genuinely, authentically her. So yeah, I think you can definitely see this out in the marketplace.
Yeah, Molly's a great example of that. And, even her company name, the Prepared Performer, right? Like my brand is called Rock Your Gift. And if you look at the logo, it was based on the explicit lyrics logo that we had back in the day on CDs, right? So kind of integrating that energy in everything possible so that we can really be one with that X factor in our work and our clients can see that energy and they're either repelled by it or they're attracted to it. And that's a big point, right?
So what would you do if you have something that you like to do, but you're not necessarily good at it? So let's say I decorate cakes. They don't really turn out that well. They might taste good, but they don't turn out that well. Is that still something that you would use?
Yeah, so we talk about the idea of the genius zone, right? So we have these four quadrants, right? We have the incompetent zone, the competent zone, the excellent zone, and the genius zone, right? So a lot of times what I find is that people might be looking at something that they love. Like you might say, okay, I love making cakes, but is it something that you would say you're excellent at or that you're a genius at? Or maybe it's in the competent zone. I don't know. But that distinction between something that you're excellent at versus genius at is a very important piece because we learn things, you might have joy in them, but is it something that really is like this thing that you do that time stands still that's really like almost like an artwork for you? Is it that passionate for you? That would be my question for you.
Yeah. So let's say it isn't. It's just something I like to do. Because I know that when we started our business early on, we felt like we had no skills, like we had nothing to really create a business out of, which is kind of why we gravitated more towards like the network marketing and the affiliate marketing, selling other people's products. That was a lot easier for us because we didn't really feel like we had anything that we could productize or any other way that we could stand out. But I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that maybe they spent their whole lives going to school and working and then kids, and they really don't have time for personal hobbies or things like that. Maybe they've got things they're passionate about, but they're not really good at.
So if we always look at when I work with my clients is starting with the niche and the business first, right? So there was a time where people would come to me and they didn't really have any clients. They didn't have any real traction in the marketplace. And they would be like, I really want to bring music into this. Like I'm a musician. I want to do what you do. And I'm like, but you don't actually have a viable niche, right? You can't communicate like I can, that I can help you generate high ticket clients from speaking in stages, right? You don't have like a clear thing, right? And so the whole way that we work with our clients is we first start from that grounded base of helping them articulate a niche and making sure that they have an offer that works in the marketplace. And then we're going to look at, okay, how do we differentiate, right? So that's sort of the thing that I would say is like, let's start with what makes money and what is going to clearly attract clients. And then let's ask the question of, okay, now that I'm starting to make money, now I'm in this red ocean space. Now the question is, how do I separate myself? And then I would say, well, what is it that brings you to that passionate place? And so I get the idea that, some people feel like they're not great at certain things, but here's what I would say. Every single person has something that lights them up. That is what I would call their X factor or their genius zone. And a lot of times people have looked at those things as non-important things because the way that we're trained in culture is to believe that what comes easily to us is actually something we undervalue. And so what is hard for us and makes us work hard is the things that we overvalue, right? And so sometimes when people don't see that they have an X factor, I start opening them up to looking at their life from different angles and like asking them, okay, but let's go back in time. Like, what really was it that you loved when you were a kid, right? What are the things that you would think about that really made you feel like, you know what, you're really feeling like this is my purpose, this is my calling. And not everybody immediately gets it, but I believe that every person has that. And the core of my work is really helping people touch into that. Because if you don't have that, in my opinion, something that lights you up, something is seriously wrong with your life, like period. That would be like a flatlined person because it would be like, what is the drive then? What's your why? It's another way of saying, what's your why? And you say, I don't have a why. I'd be like, okay, maybe we need to work on that before you even talk about growing a business. Cause like you need fuel, you need passion. Business doesn't work without it. I think everyone has it. And sometimes we just need to stoke that fire.
So once you've kind of dug deep enough to find out what this is, how do you actually apply it? Like, I know you mentioned a method and different things. Take us to that next step.
Yeah. So once we identify what that unique gift is, then we start asking the question of how can we integrate this into the business? And we'll look at it from the angle of how do we integrate this into the messaging? How do we integrate this into the marketing? How do we integrate this into the service delivery? How do we integrate this into the branding, right? So we start asking all these questions of like, what's the first place that we would like to integrate it? And, a lot of times what I like my clients to do is I actually like them to launch an event first because, it can get kind of in their head about like, all right, let me go work on my website. Let me go work on my logo and so forth. And I want to help them to turn this into something tangible that's going to get them to see the ROI in this kind of thing. So I like to ask my clients to do something like either create an event or create some kind of a business asset. As an example, maybe it's a marketing video. And in this marketing video, you decide to do something a little creative. Maybe you start it with you cooking in the kitchen. If you're like really you're a foodie, as an example, right? Maybe you do it like my client did, where she did these YouTube videos on the slopes when she was skiing. And she's this corporate coach, mind you, right? Where it's usually buttoned up, right? Why don't we take a risk and have you do something where you're expressing this unique genius zone in some way that's a means to attract clients or to create business? And my favorite way is to have them to launch a workshop and to try to do something with that workshop where they are bringing some of that into it. And as an example, I believe that we can like really innovate. And so there's a client of mine who has a background and she's an actual artist. And what she did was she did an event, which was a workshop where she invited people. She made an offer, but she did it in an art studio and she did it kind of with her art there, like almost like an art show, but it was really a focus on the workshop, right? And so that was a great way for her to experience trying this out. And the thing I would say for people is it's not going to come easy. There's something that I always say when I'm speaking from stage on this. It's called brave the innovation leap. Like we're very much creatures of habit. We get into this place where when we learn something and we get it down, like we learn a framework and we sort of just go over that groove, go over that groove, go over that groove. And in order to do what I'm talking about, we need to be brave and we need to take risks. That's exactly what I did when I launched my Rock Your Gift event. I literally was up against having put down over 20,000 to this venue and so forth for this 3-day event. And I had made a decision that I was going to integrate my music and my love of art and rapping into it. But I had no idea what it was about. But guess what I did have? A date. So it was going to happen one way or another. So by the time that day came, I had to figure out what this was. And what that did for me is that it pushed my creative muscles. It pushed me to get more into a creative thinking mode. And it had me sort of stretch to the point where I could figure out something new because I was brought up learning from Tony Robbins that we need to model our mentors. And that's great. It's great advice, except that when you model and model and model, you end up looking like and sounding like those same people. And so the whole thing is, at what point do you say, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to try to actually integrate something new, not because it's something that's going to sell, not because I'm trying to stand out, but because I actually love it. And I want to bring something I love into my business, because one of the biggest stands I take with my clients is everyone tells you that it's all about the customer, meaning that you as the CEO don't matter. And what I always say is that's impossible. You got into this business because you clearly have a purpose and passion for something. So what you love, obviously, was one of the impetuses for why we're even here today. You can't cut that off. You've got to actually allow that in. And so it's true that it's about the customer, but it's also true that what you love and what brings you to life is equally important. And that's something that very few entrepreneurs ever have anybody tell them.
Yeah. Do you ever run into a situation where somebody kind of settles on an idea and then they implement and it doesn't really work out so well? Do they pivot, or do they just try something totally new, or can they adjust what they're doing? Like, what happens if you try something out and it doesn't go so well?
Yeah, so I would say if you try something out and it doesn't go so well, it's just like anything. It's a test, right? And you can say, I'm really glad I tried that. I'm not going to do that again. Or what can I take from this that I can bring into the next thing? So to me, that's like creativity in essence, what you're talking about, right? Like we throw something up on a canvas and we don't like what it is. And so are we going to just throw it out in the garbage, or we're going to be like, maybe add some paint to this. Maybe add a little red here. Let me change this. Maybe it's not a horse. Maybe it's actually a face. Maybe it's this, right? And we start to innovate, but iterate, right? And start to see like, what's the next thing? So to me, it's all about, let's test things out. And then let's see what emerges from those tests, and let's grow into, kind of our next evolution by being brave enough to put those things out, because you'll never find out if you don't take those risks,
I think that's so important, because a lot of people, especially when we're talking about their identity online and how they present themselves, I think a lot of people feel that they have to settle on something and then that's just the way it is forever, and that they either can't change or it's too difficult to change. I know that we've gone through at least 2 rebrands in the past, and for us it was kind of like what you were saying. It was just throwing things up against the wall and seeing what sticks and what we were comfortable with and what we were passionate about. So I think that point is really important, that it's okay to try something and not be good at it or have it fail.
Yeah, when I first launched this whole thing, right, what we're talking about today, it was totally like that. I was really passionate about this idea of helping people stand out. But I honestly was just my first draft of actually doing it with people. But I was there, in my first event, taking people through exercises and experiencing what it was like to actually put this thing into reality. Some of it didn't work. Some of it was really uncomfortable for me. Some of it felt like, you know what, I'm just making this up, And I was like, what is this? And yet it started to create a life of its own, because the more that I started teaching it and the more that I started like iterating and learning from that, the more that I started to see that it wasn't just something that I was making up. It was something that was actually trying to come through me. And that's what I think is interesting, when we look at the whole process of creating a business, especially for coaches, where you have like a signature system, you have a process. A lot of times it feels like you're just fabricating it. You're like, I have this 5-step thing, I have this 7-step thing. And what I have found over time is that when you're really doing something with your clients that you love, that thing is actually trying to come through you, kind of like the David statue. It's already there, and you're trying to remove the things that is not it. And so I really believe that when we take these risks on ourselves, it's not just us, this human that's alone within our own brain coming up with stuff. I believe that there's something bigger that's actually like driving us towards evolving something that's like already been there that we're just trying to figure out. So that's how I see it. I think it's great when people can take risks, because that's what's missing. And that's what's keeping people in a box of being boring and being invisible, is like thinking, okay, I learned this thing from my mentor, I got to do it like this. And like, why don't I get the same results as my mentor? I literally did the exact thing they told me to do. Well, it's because you're not in it. You're following somebody else's model. And in order to be in it, you got to take that risk, and kind of like, the masters of art. First, you had to learn how to do classic ret painting or whatever, and then you could start getting creative. So it's not to me about, let me just deviate the first time I try it. Let me go out there. Let me follow the templates. Let me follow the models. Let me learn from them. Let me start getting results. But then at some point, let me bring my unique gifts in and bring some color into this.
Yeah, I used to be a band teacher, and jazz was one of my favorite things. And it's the exact same thing. A lot of people have this idea of jazz music as, hey, you just play whatever you want, whatever comes to your mind, and be creative with it. And it's no, it's not that. In order to be really good at jazz improv, you got to know all your scales, forwards, backwards. You need to know all the patterns up and down. And you need to be able to change them every measure or every half measure, because some of these songs just move really quick. You need to learn all the structure first. Once you've learned the structure, like you said, you need to kind of learn from your mentors. Figure out whose sound you like, who you want to emulate a little bit. It may not even be the person that plays the same instrument as you. I know that there's bassists, people who play string bass, who have a very similar sound to a lot of saxophone players, because that's who they wanted to emulate. And then you can start to, once you have all that structure and you have that knowledge, then you can start to deviate and start to improv and start to do your own thing. But yeah, I think you're exactly right.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, we get into that creative zone with our clients, but as I was saying earlier, we do look at the marketing side. And so there's a process then we look at that I help my clients with that could be probably helpful for people listening on how to articulate what is that unique mechanism, right? What is that thing? Once you know who you help, and we've gone past some of the steps around, okay, what's my genius zone? How do I integrate it in? We like to help our clients to fill out this template. And basically, it's got these 4 elements to it. The first part is, who's the ideal client? The second part is, what is it that they want? The third part is, what is everybody else in the marketplace, who is your competitor, saying already? What's kind of the common advice in that arena? And then the last part, which is what we call your X factor, that's what is your differentiation? How do you take that same topic and bring a different angle to it? So the template goes like this. In order for, let's say, coaches to get more high ticket clients, right, you might say something like, running ads and posting organically on social media doesn't work or is no longer effective. Instead, what you need to do is identify what your X factor is, and then use the power of speaking in stages to bring that message to life on stage for your clients. Otherwise, the ideal high ticket clients that you want to work with, they will never find you in this oversaturated space. So in order for ideal client to get the thing that they want, the old thing that most people say no longer works is irrelevant. Instead, you must X factor. It's a fun way for people to start to think about, how do I articulate what makes me different in my market?
So I love that. That's great. I think a lot of people, maybe their curiosity is piqued with what you're talking about there. I know you've got a really great freebie that goes along with it. Why don't you tell the audience what you have for them today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know many people want to share their message with more people and they want to get out. And a lot of people feel like they'd love to speak on stage. They love to share their gifts, but they don't know exactly where to start or how to get those opportunities. So I've created a really cool gift. It's called 101 Places to Speak. And this is a curated, updated list of places that are looking for speakers. I mean, these are different organizations, networking clubs. These are all over the US. So it's not location specific. You're going to find these in your location. And so if you would like to get access to the 101 Places to Speak, that would be our best next step to connect. You can get that by going to tinyurl.com/places number 2 speak. So places to speak with the number 2, tinyurl.com/places number 2 speak.
Awesome. We'll have the links to that in the show notes and description. Sean, this has been a great conversation. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.